Hello, everyone, and thank you for hanging out with us. So it turns out that the state of California has two amazing tech companies. One of them is in Palo Alto. It's called Facebook. So we're going to be talking about today. The other is this little company called Citrix in Santa Barbara. They make terrible products, and I apologize for the technical delay. It is Matt Charney, and I'm hoping that everyone is here with me. But that said, looks like I do have some of my presenters in mind, so I want to just get kind of started. Jess, you want to start off by introduce yourself? Jackie, introduce yourself. And because I didn't do this, My Life Theater, I'm Matt Charney. That's at Matt Charney on Twitter if you would like to troll me, and I'm the executive editor for Recruiting Daily. Jess?
Yep, absolutely. So, Jess Roberts, at jroberts257 on Twitter, also jroberts257 on Facebook, and pretty much anywhere. A senior sourcer at Blizzard Entertainment. I source for pretty much everything from UI, UX, PMs, tech, all the way through engineers. Been doing this for about 11 years now, so that's me.
Cool. I've been playing World of Warcraft for about that long, so I'm very jealous of you. And Miss Jackie, everyone knows you, but just for the sake of shits and giggles.
Hi, I'm Jackie Clayton, editor of recruitingtools.com. I'm glad that we're talking about Facebook today because it's probably one of my favorite places to source candidates. And just so you know, some people don't know this. So my background is in recruiting and mainly on the technical recruiting side. So Facebook has been some place that I've gone to for a long time trying to test it out. And there's a lot of tools that can help with that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by asking you a question. Why is Facebook, and let me say, ever since they retired Open Graph, why is that your favorite place to source candidates?
Facebook's definitely one of my favorite ones because there's pretty much everybody on there. It's easy to find people, even without Open Graph. They've got the natural language search inside the search box there, so you can still go, people working at Google, people working at, Facebook, obviously, right? So you can still do all the fun natural language stuff and get it pulled up. There's also a fun thing that not a lot of people know about on Facebook. It's facebook.com/directory, and it's an actual directory of every page, every person with a public profile on Facebook. So you can actually search that. When you search that, it's a list of everybody in there alphabetically that's not ranked by, if you're a friend or not. So it's good for, especially if you know someone's name or a particular page that you're looking for. It's really easy to find stuff on.
Yes, I just saw that on Catfish, the TV show, actually. So good on you. Which, by the way, is like where I learned half of the hacks in the world. I kind of think that it's brilliant. But all that said, okay, so everyone's on there. I was just looking at actually some stats, and they're from my vendor, so it is what it is. It's showing right now that only about 65% of employers do anything recruiting related, whether that's background or perfunctory research on candidates, whether that's putting a job posting up, engaging anything. Only about 60% of companies, about 3 in 5 in the Fortune 500, do that. Why do you think there is such a resistance to the fact that, every candidate ostensibly is on there? You've got, 1 out of 3 members of the world population of Facebook members. Why isn't every company on there, Jess?
I think it's still kind of new for everyone, getting used to that, figuring out where that line is between invasion of privacy and, work. I think everybody, company-wise, LinkedIn's still the big player. And hey, I've made a lot of hires from LinkedIn too, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's that initial hesitation that, hey, Facebook is personal, Facebook's for business. I think that's changing based on, like with the new stuff Facebook started rolling out with the job postings. I definitely think that that's going to be changing. If you're part of that 65% using it, then, you're kind of in on the early adopter stage and you're hitting it before it was flooded with recruiters, kind of like LinkedIn in 2006, right? LinkedIn 2006, it was invitation only. It wasn't flooded with every recruiter on demand, so it was a great hunting ground. Now, yeah.
Right. So, and it's really interesting that you say that. I'm curious to get your take, both of you. So, when I go on LinkedIn now, used to be, I'd see some job things, I'd see some of those hokey, like, employer branding pictures. Now, when I go and look at my feed, I just pulled it up. I have an inspirational photo with a quote about the key to success from Richard Branson. I have a picture of a Utah well-being survey, and I have an Accenture consumer goods ad. That's what's appearing above the fold. Have either of you noticed that LinkedIn content seems to be getting a little bit more personal in nature? And if so, what do you think's driving that change? Why are people suddenly starting to show more of themselves there personally, as obviously we've tracked more people are sharing themselves on Facebook professionally?
Hey Matt, it's Brian. I think that a reason that can you hear me okay? Because I've been trying for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, no.
All right. So I think that people are getting more personal there because one, the format has changed. I mean, let's face it, the new UI for LinkedIn really resembles the always existing UI for Facebook. So there's that information that's there. The second piece is that we're hounded day in and day out that we need to be more and more authentic. So posting a picture of ourselves in a scantily clad outfit to get likes and generate conversation, if that's the same thing that works on Instagram and on Facebook, why wouldn't I use it on LinkedIn? Why wouldn't I use it?
That's a really good question. Now, when you talk about this kind of move towards authenticity, and transparency, do you see Facebook as kind of stepping in and filling that perceived market void, or do you think that people still perceive it as a little bit too personal? In other words, is that a reason why more and more recruiters are starting to embrace this as a place to find candidates, or are people who have put that stuff out there in the past now starting to realize that employers are on there and are getting afraid about sharing professional information?
I think that they could be, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it actually could be both of those, but I think there's a third piece, and I want to go back to the comment you made about programmatic advertising and about intrusion, is that when I sign up for LinkedIn, I self-report, some details about who I am or who I purport to be. I haven't signed up for LinkedIn recently, but I don't know that it asks people for their birth date anymore, right? That used to be a piece of information. It also used to be when you could build your LinkedIn profile by connecting it to your Facebook profile, right? With Facebook, when we're setting it up, we're putting a lot more information. I mean, guys, I'll put it out there. If you've met me, I'm Jewish. I have to tell you, I get bombarded with programmatic ads about everything under the sun, from J-date to what kind of matzah I'm going to buy for Passover. And I know it sounds funny, I know it sounds humorous, but it's true. But if somebody bothered to dial in to see that I was happily married, maybe they wouldn't be doing the ad spend for J-date, right? I would also point and say, I think that I saw a few I think I've seen a few ads that have been pointed directly at me on Facebook about recruiting roles from companies like IDR and Randstad.
Right. Now, have you noticed the obscene amount that LinkedIn spends to advertise on their talent solutions on Facebook? Like, that to me is the ultimate, and Microsoft is starting to now as well. That to me is the ultimate sign that when it comes to programmatic, that there may be some future here, because essentially what this one network, which is relying on ad revenue, is saying is that we need to go to a direct competitor, spend there, and then try to make money on the margins. I've never seen a Facebook ad on LinkedIn, though. Has anyone? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have. So Facebook originates ads on LinkedIn? No?
I've seen LinkedIn ads on Facebook. I've seen LinkedIn ads on Facebook. Matt, look, I'm not saying the party's over with LinkedIn. However, that's a major coup d'etat. That's like when MySpace said, oh, you don't have to type in your email address anymore to log into MySpace. You can just hit login with Facebook. That's like giving. I mean, it's certainly ceding a lot of territory.
Right. No, absolutely. And so I'm just kind of curious, when you look at kind of how you would approach a sourcing strategy, Jess, so I'll obviously leave this open to you as well. Talk to me a little bit about how you work in Facebook without just the job posting capability. So strip that out when you're looking at programmatic engagement, all that. Talk me through what a good Facebook recruiting strategy looks like, because as of right now, it makes up between 1.5% and 3% of all hires is all social media, right? So Facebook, one can imagine, very small portion of that. So I'm curious as to what you're getting right.
Yeah, so I think there's two things to look at. There's the one-offs, right, which are not scalable at all. That's the ones where, you may have found the person on LinkedIn, you may have found an article, you may have met them at a conference, you may have a conference list, you may have, found their profile when you're looking for someone, you found a profile on OkCupid, right, like whatever, right? Those are the one-offs. You use Facebook to, you already know the person, so you go after them and do the direct reach out through Facebook Messenger, right? Like that, to me, those are one-offs, not really scalable. It's, it's the small percentage of super, super hard to find people that, don't exist. Like that's one strategy for Facebook, right? It's a great communication tool with Messenger. It's a great way to find people on that side of it. It's a great way to work through it. I think the other side of it, the secondary, kind of the strategy piece of it, is going into using tools like, Hire Tool, which does a great job of letting you build your search strings within Facebook. Shane McCrusker's got the Facebook search, Facebook intelligence search as well. Using tools like that to actually look specifically for people on Facebook as your search. I mean, it's another tool in your belt, right? Like, I wouldn't drop everything I'm doing and do just Facebook. Just like I wouldn't drop LinkedIn completely and say, hey, no more LinkedIn. I think building in that into your strategy, that part's scalable.
What's the budget for a successful Facebook campaign? If I wanted to get buy-in to recruit at Facebook at my company, what's like a good budget to ask for to start that out?
You're gonna need 2,000, and I'm gonna challenge Jess on this. Is that Jess, there is going direct, and you can use Messenger, not on the desktop, but on your phone, to really directly connect with those individuals. Instead, use that budget and Programmatic to deliver content to their newsfeed, more sponsored content. The example I would give is, say, look, we're putting at Relish Technologies, we focus on finding excellent DevOps professionals so that they can drive migrations in a professional services capacity. Wow, that sounds really attractive. I'm going to click on that ad. But instead, if I am promoting on Facebook a post that deals specifically with something in that industry, and then layering on top of it an event that we're going to have, like the one that we had last Wednesday, we had 100-something plus DevOps professionals show up for it, and we had a speaker. We were able to shrink the pool of people that we wanted to talk about, deliver the ad to them, provide some content and value, and then drive them to attend an event. Now, that's a really long tail to get them there, but we're providing value as opposed to trying to take them out of somewhere initially. Jess, do you guys do that for BlizzCon?
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually the other another piece of it, right? Is the targeted ads. That's where Facebook, talking about budget for TA as a whole or company as a whole, that's where there's a lot of value add to going after Facebook. It's kind of that sprinkling information, right? And then it goes to, your drip campaigns of here's some articles here. Like Blizzard just had the best places to work. We've managed to get on the Fortune 100 best places to work. Obviously, a lot of time going into making sure we're all promoting that, making sure Facebook knows about that. Those little small tidbits are great. But then, when you talk about events, like a BlizzCon or like, Relish, like you're talking about, or, SourceCon or, wherever people are going to be at, right? Like, whatever the events are, doing targeted ad campaigns to get people to see that. Yeah, budget-wise, Brad, I think you're in a good starting point. I think it depends on the size of the company, and working out, is that a TA budget, is that a marketing budget?
All right, so here's the other piece that I would put, because everybody on this call knows that my favorite word is free, is let your competitors spend that money for you instead. And what I mean by that is that if we're on Facebook, and let's say that I don't know, that Rockstar Games, maybe they're a competitor to Blizzard. You guys don't really have a lot of competitors. Maybe they've got a post they're putting in one particular group. What would it be like to go in there and to click on the like button and see who all has liked it and to discern their profiles? It takes a little more digging, but we know who is engaged in that community and who is actively engaging with that employer brand. And we're not spending any money. We're spending time.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen because I want to show everybody an example, just so you can see a little bit more about what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Let me pass that along to you. Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think. Can you see my screen?
Uh,
Yep.
not. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that they had mentioned that is going to be helpful in what they were referring to. So one of them was Shane's tool, which is I forgot. Why did I forget what it's called?
It's one
Social
television.
Yeah.
So if you can see it, it does do a couple of different things. Every time I go over here, it's going to cancel it out. So let me go back. So what's interesting about this is that you can see, keeps popping back out. So what we're talking about is looking at what people like or your competitors. And what you can use this tool to do is actually find out, I want to know who likes, I don't know, we'll say people who like recruiting. There's various pages like that. So I'm going to go here in Facebook, and let's say I want to know if there is a page called recruiting. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. We'll say if it's recruiting blogs, right? Just for giggles. So when I go through there, it's going to show me all of the tools that are named recruiting blogs. Let's say it's not that specific. So here you'll see it comes up with the Facebook search. So we know that even though we'd like to think we're the only ones called recruiting blogs, there's actually somebody else that has recruiting and blog and other ones. So if, using the example that they had just spoken about, if I want to know about my competitors, this is a different blog that I'm not sure about. So now that it's come up, I can actually go within their page and find people who like those pages or people that are sharing to see maybe those are people that would like my blog as well. One of the ways that it's easier to do that is to go in and see where people like that page. So now I have access to various actual people who like that page that maybe I want to target. So if you're going to go in and let's say you are looking for a .NET developer, we're going to go back here to this tool that we were just talking about. If I can get it to come back because it likes to pop back out. And we're going to go and see if there are any tools that are called, that's my husband's name. We're going to go in and see if there's any tools that are going to be a page that goes there to show if there's a .NET developer page. So I'll just go in here. I can use my search tree as well. So when you go in here, you're going to type it in. And what it actually does is it's going to take you and show you the various posts, photos, etc. here. So if I'm going to go in and looking for a web developer, if you look here, we have the Microsoft page, etc. This one's talking about that. You can actually go into this work position page, look at the various, go within the various groups. This one's C#. And again, see who's posting, but also see who likes the posts that are being there. The odds are that out of these 56 people that are listed here, that there's going to be someone that's a .NET developer that I might be able to work with. And what's great is that you don't have to be connected to these people.
Hey, this is Todd. Hey, this is Todd. I hate to jump in. I was like late to the. No, I've been here, but it's like freaking time zones. Like I'm requesting I'm pretty raw and real. I was like requesting like 2 hours ahead of time. What time's it start? I'm in Mountain, so I apologize for being late to the show. But
no, it was our screw up. But Mr. Todd Davis himself in the house. Welcome.
Yeah, I didn't know if I should jump in, if I should put a shirt
on.
No,
that's perfect. If I would have known you were on, man, I would have tried to back you up a long time ago.
Yeah, no, it's
Wait a minute,
good.
This is a topless show?
Well, it was for me up until about 5 minutes ago because I'm in Arizona and it's hit 96 again today. So Seattleite, the pasty one, is like trying to, acclimate down here. But this is so spot on, which is really cool in terms of that. But what I like to do in terms of actually finding out the members of the group is to use the tool to go back in and search and pull up the whole list of everybody on that particular page or group that they've liked, and then being able to use the other filters to kind of filter down on whether they've liked another page, like in terms of the technology or something, and be able to get a full list using Shane's tool for sure. And another really cool creepy feature that's out there, which I don't know if you guys talked about, was that for, like, if you join an event or a group or something like that, now on the mobile app on Facebook, you can go into Discover People, and what it does is it actually ends up showing you people in your region that are part of that group, and you can connect with it. It's almost like swipe left, swipe right for that, and it's a really cool tool to use for events and for other things, for sure.
Yeah, and that brings up, I guess, an interesting thing that I'm surprised hasn't been addressed, which is the Facebook Pixel, right? So essentially, what that is enabled to do, it's a fully open API, works on HTML5 without a whole lot of tinkering, and essentially what that does is it gives you the Facebook both retargeting as well as audience insights to anyone who visits a website that is codified by URL. So somebody bounces your career site. If you have the Facebook Pixel, API working, then you would be able to see those results and also be able to retarget ads directly to that person. I'm wondering if any of you had any experience with that, because I know that that's one of marketers' favorite tools right now.
Yeah, so
I know what I'm doing this afternoon.
In a past life, I had a web design company. So it's like messing around with code, and we used to use that on there. It actually works really well. It's very similar to it's very similar to how HubSpot does to try to get the information. The difference is if you've got a Facebook profile and you're using Facebook Pixel, it gives you a lot of insight. So it's great for careers pages, and especially if you're if you're with a company that has a consumer product, it's not one you'd want to put on the homepage, because obviously you're going to get 100 million hits from everybody that likes your product. But it's great for using on careers pages, or most of the ATSs out there actually have a link inside of them for you to actually put that code there, so you can actually have it per job description as well, and you can play around with that too. It's pretty valuable insight.
What I think is also interesting, so it's our Oracle obviously is about 80% market share already, but Facebook actually works, it integrates with Salesforce, integrates with Marketo, it integrates with Eloquent, has all these CRM integrations. And, obviously marketers have started using that for a really long time. But if you look kind of through the names of some of the major CRM integrations, it's a lot of the tier 1 ERP companies, SAP as well. I'm curious, do any of you see a point where Facebook becomes a system of record and disintermediates both career sites as well as applicant tracking systems? Because, again, you can do mock-ups and dynamic pages and all that stuff. You can fully track personal information, you can structure processes, and you can stick it hypothetically into a CRM. So I'm curious as to if you see this augmenting or replacing any part of the traditional HR tech stack.
Hey, this is Todd. I think that is such a far reach. I mean, right now, if we can't even get people to use message requests, I can't imagine, like, at some point in time, people being comfortable with something along those lines. I think that the capabilities there, I think it's great to talk about and something we should be thinking about, but I think there's a huge gap or chasm that we have to cross in terms of our thinking about Facebook before we get to that point.
So I'm curious if you could delve a little bit more. Do people not realize that in about 300 million unique web properties that Facebook Connect's already picking up their personal data, behavior, activity, and demographics?
I think people like cat videos, and I think that people like looking at family and all that sort of thing. I think they're not doing, and hopefully within the recruiting community, they're doing a deeper dive and thinking about it. But as a whole, I still think we're just in the very beginning and stone age of using Facebook for any sort of recruiting or sourcing, in my opinion.
Interesting.
I think funny enough, though, I mean, you look at, so there's actually a couple of ATSs out there that already use Facebook Connect to populate your information. I saw one the other day when I was doing some competitive research, and I can't remember the company off the top of my head, but it had where you could actually fill out.
Sure do.
Yeah, so you can already do the Facebook Connect to bring it in. So I think it's there. I think one of the hesitations for the recruiting community and Facebook, I think some of the initial hesitations is a lot of organizations, a majority of organizations, recruiting rolls up through HR. HR gets very scared when you start talking about Facebook, depending on the organization, because of potential issues with diversity. There's organizations that block LinkedIn profile pictures. There's tools, they buy tools where it blocks out the LinkedIn profile pictures. Getting into Facebook and starting to use Facebook as a recruiting tool, a lot of organizations get kind of antsy on that. I've been very lucky and haven't worked for one that's happened with yet, but I've heard of friends that have had that issue. So I think that's where there's definitely a little hesitation because of what kind of new grounds it could potentially open up.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, though, because on the diversity front, I want to just stay there for a minute. So in Facebook, I can serve ads directly to, like lifestyle groups, something like, persistent, productive. I can serve up to individual job titles. But I can also, disqualify people from seeing ads based off of their U.S. political interests. So if they're very conservative, I could disqualify them from an ad, knock them out of the field. I can also market to specific household compositions, so no children in the home or, working women. Versus, only seeing a broader audience. And, obviously I can just target baby boomers, millennials. Do you have any concerns at all about the fact that by segmenting consumers the way that Facebook is, that might actually discourage inclusion, or what do you think the repercussions of this may be? Because obviously they're hyper-targeting as such, where they know everything from your relationship status to how much money you owe credit cards.
I think it's definitely a possibility, and it's something that everybody needs to be aware of. And again, this is where I think HR departments get really antsy on that side. Is you could potentially have hiring managers wanting to, we've all been on the agency side at some point or heard of agency tells where we get a call from a company and they're like, look, we can't really say this, but we want, pharmaceutical reps under the age of 30. It's like, that's a huge, 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 huge issue, right? Because then you go with qualification versus, the bias. And so I think with what you're saying there, it's definitely, it's a real problem that's going to have to be on the lookout for. And it could cause some reverse bias.
So I want to, Todd, I want to pick up on that. The comment I wanted to make earlier, as we were talking about HR, is one, HR and recruiting, particularly when it came to financial securities and the financial industry, they were the very last adopters when it came to reaching out via LinkedIn, right? And they had a unique opportunity there. Is that instead of them holding back, and HR as a whole now, instead of HR as a whole holding back, we should be rushing towards, or HR should be rushing towards Facebook and saying, these are the potential pitfalls. Let's figure out how to overcome them before they happen. You used the example about pharmaceutical recruiting. I was on the phone with Jackie. Jackie, you and I were on Friday. I started my career in pharmaceutical recruiting. I know that when I put a manager in front of somebody who had a degree in business and marketing and a 3.75 GPA, I wasn't stupid. I know that there are certain pharmaceutical companies that only hire blonde-haired girls who wear blue suits. And what I would say is, it's true, it's documented. I'm out there saying it, right? One of the things that I would say about it is, HR in those instances did nothing to prevent that from occurring. So this is an instance where HR really should be taking a leadership role in a proactive capacity as opposed to a reactive no capacity, because the genie's already out of the bottle with Facebook. There are 2 billion users that can be marketed to at any time. And as recruiters, really, isn't that what we do? We market to people. We try to get their attention and trade in their attention at the right time. If HR wants a voice in the conversation, now's the time for them to have it and for them to define best practices about what they will tolerate and what they won't tolerate. Because what's the difference about recruiting on Facebook as opposed to a company sponsoring a meetup on Tinder to recruit young, 2 companies in Atlanta documented, have done it, right? Great case studies. And if it's happening in Atlanta, I presume it's happening everywhere else. What's the difference between that and what we're talking about on Facebook?
You know what? It's kind of interesting you bring that up because, obviously I helped launch Be Known's 5 minutes of awesomeness before LinkedIn shut off their APIs. So I've been kind of watching this market evolve for a while. And the pushback, or I guess the excitement in recruiting in HR used to be, oh, this is finally a way to connect with those crazy millennials because they're all on Facebook. So, which, by the way, I wouldn't worry too much about age discrimination, having read about 50 of those posts today. But all that is to say, now I think it's actually kind of interesting. When you look at the average demographics, it's like Betty HR. Average Facebook user is a 37-year-old woman is making over $78,000 a year, right? So I think that it's interesting that the demographics have actually shifted to mirror the industry, whereas if you talk to those crazy millennials or digital natives, they almost all think that it's the equivalent of like a Betamax tape and are abandoning it for Snap if you look at the usage statistics in droves. So I think it's really interesting to kind of watch the consumer behaviors actually start to mimic the makeup of it. So I'm just kind of curious, though, in taking that vein, do you think that Facebook is going to continue to grow and add functionality to be more viable here? Todd, talk to me a little bit about how, from a brand perspective, they're going to make people comfortable, across the board demographically, continuing to both sign up and use this platform, because it looks like it's dropping off among a certain demographic.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest about where we get our information. I mean, Adweek in August of 24th of 2016 said 41% of millennials use Facebook every day. So 41% to me is still a large percentage of it, of those numbers. But I'm sure somebody else could pull another number out of some other resource or some other area. But the point being is, and I was an English major, so I'm not really great at numbers or math, but when you're talking about the growth that Facebook is having and the billions of users that are on it, we could splice and dice and all that stuff. I can't believe that a majority of the billions of people that are on Facebook are going to be, the 37-somethings with making 78,000. Maybe. I mean, that could be the possibility, but I still think it's a viable resource and will continue to be a viable resource for everybody moving forward, but it depends on how you're using it, right? There are a lot smarter people on this call than myself, and the way that I use Facebook is really just because of that database, and not necessarily looking at it from a marketing perspective, but looking at it as a starting point to reach out to people in different ways. I took my first AIR certification back in the 90s, which was crazy, and they talked about peeling back the URL to get to additional information. The new version of that is using the largest database that we can get our hands on and then peeling back, in other words, looking at different social footprints that people have based on an initial search on Facebook. That's what I'm thinking. Now, overcoming perception and overcoming, apprehension to actually using or embracing it or such, I think it's still going to be a slow grind. People have a notion, and it's been ingrained in us for a number of years, that LinkedIn is for business and Facebook is for personal, and it's those that are progressive, those that are thinking and forward thinking in terms of it will start embracing it, but a majority of the companies I don't think are going to get there anytime soon in terms of moving out of that mindset. We've been really marketed to and sold to that, that Facebook is for a specific and certain activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Certainly.
and I'll tack onto that with Todd. I mean, I'm a recruiter. I try new tools all the time. I love this stuff. I just recently started, so I was sourcing on Facebook, but I kept all my professional connections off Facebook. I kept them on LinkedIn up until probably about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now. And I got a friend request from one of the recruiters I was working with, like, hey, let's connect up. And I'm like, oh, well, we're friends outside of work, and I'd be really, I don't want to avoid this connection. Okay, fine. I added him. He started adding me to all these Facebook groups and connecting me up with other recruiters. And then, that's how I met, most of the people on this call is through Facebook. And it's so funny because, 2 years ago, I was strictly Facebook's my personal, everything's private, blah, 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 blah. Now Facebook is almost what LinkedIn was for me, 5-6 years ago. So it's changed. And so now I don't have a personal network. I have a Facebook business professional network. So
would you delete Facebook if you didn't have to use it for work?
I've been tempted to a few times. But thankfully I found a tool called Social Fixer. I actually posted an article up on this a month or so ago. Social Fixer really saved my sanity when it came to Facebook, because I'm on there a lot with recruiting. I got tired of seeing all the political posts, all the religious posts, all the you hate me posts, all the I'm just going to go whine about everything, because that's what Facebook is, right? It's either my life is perfect or I'm just going to whine about everything that's not going on. So using Social Fixer, I was able to actually filter out the majority of those kind of posts, and it made it to where it's actually a pretty sane network now. So I didn't want to block and unfriend people based on, them having a stupid moment. I, just didn't want to see their stupid moment.
That's
I love
amen.
I love the chaos. I don't want to filter anything. I love this is Todd. I love that. I've got all sorts of craziness going on, in terms of recruiting. And I admit, like, my worlds have blended now, but I feel like if you're going to deal with me in a professional setting, you're going to get the same person you're going to deal with in a personal setting to a large degree and such. And so, but I am cognizant and mindful of things I post, just because I like to think like I'm aware of people and of my situations and things that may cause issues, but I love the chaos. I love blending the worlds together for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I actually have a rule. So my Facebook rule is that I do not publish anything business related, because like literally that's all I see is like webinar promotions, like humble bragging about things that happen at work. So I said a long time ago I'm not going to do that. Now what I think is interesting though is that people start to really actively promote within these personal networks. And so I'm curious if you guys, maybe I'm weird, and Jackie, please weigh in here. Do you have any compunction about the fact that you're essentially using a network that was built based off of your personal connections outside of work for essentially profit purposes, that you're capitalizing on an extant network of people who probably don't care? And if they do, that's not why they originally connected with you.
I mean, I'm not selling LuLaRoe on my Facebook page, so and there's that.
You know what?
Wait, Jeff.
You did bring up. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just wondering, Jess, did you not send me an invitation to your LuLaRoe live chat cast?
No, that wasn't me. That'd be another chat.
Actually, I'm making that joke, and Lex, I want you to get your comment in here. But can we talk about live video in just a second? Because there's a piece that I've kind of been trying to isolate thought leaders and then look at all the people who are actively engaged in the conversation when they're doing live video. Lex, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go ahead.
That was Jackie, actually, but that's cute. I like that. I wanted to show everybody something that I think is really important to know about. It's actually really helpful. It's called Data Selfie, and it has to do with Facebook. I'm hoping that you can see my screen right now. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier about the difference between a LinkedIn and a Facebook. So what this is it, and this is completely transparent and weird, but it actually goes through how Facebook determines who you are. It's at data selfie with an IE.IT. And what it does is it shows what you've looked at, what you've typed. Apparently, Jess, I love your posts very much. And it actually makes a determination of you based on your clicks. And so that's where this is a little bit different than a LinkedIn. For example, it lets people know that apparently I like crappy clothes, or I probably don't have a gym membership. But it actually goes through and knows those things. But going back to what you were saying way earlier about ads, it is very specific about who it can target. And so I find it interesting that they have this full prediction of who you are based on what's going on with Facebook. So it is a little bit more intimidating than a LinkedIn, because it doesn't show exactly what you've clicked on. And if it does show what you've clicked on, we're dealing with usually professional articles and not the, Lulu clothes thing that you were just talking about, Brian. But I found this to be very, very interesting on how it breaks things down. And I definitely I think if you're wondering what kind of information that's going back on Facebook, this is a great place to
But this is just specific to your profile, and I imagine you have to authenticate in with Facebook, correct?
Actually, well, it is a extension. It's a Chrome extension that you can use, but yes, you do have to go into those things. But that's how it's pulling the information, if you were curious as to what kind of information that they get and how they make their determinations.
No doubt. I just think so. I think it's interesting because Facebook within the last year has pulled their APIs to see other people's information like this. So you used to be able to do things like map your network and look at how people were related, strength of connections, basically SMA. They've pulled that, aggregate information. So I think it's interesting that they are giving unlimited visibility and transparency into individual, but not aggregate profiles. Just as an aside, I'm obviously a huge nerd. We have 8 minutes left. The one thing that I think we were going to talk about was live video. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I want to know if anybody's using live video not only to showcase their brand, but to run through the comments of quote unquote Facebook celebrities. Like, is anybody using that? Like, I'm just curious about that piece of the equation. Like, I thought about going through like Gary Vaynerchuk, because he always does live video, and find out who is responding. If you don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, Jess, is it fair to say we're both obsessed with him and he's a marketing guru?
Oh yeah. Okay.
And he does Facebook chats often, very often. You get thousands of people that are on there, and you can follow those comments in real time. I think it's been pretty good maybe to find people who are thinking that they're entrepreneurs, but I'm not sure. Is there any brand that's using that to engage right now, doing kind of like a day in the life or anything? Has anybody seen that?
I've seen a lot of kind of impromptu, and it looks like attempts, like somebody will film a company gathering or like sort of that EB stuff. My question is, does anyone watch Facebook Live other than the people who think Gary Vaynerchuk's a genius? Because I'm assuming they don't have jobs for the large part. But like I go on most of these things, I see 1 or 2 people on there. I'm curious as to what your impression of the adoption is, because while they haven't released any numbers on it, they are plugging that thing pretty hard, which makes me think it's not doing all that well.
So the Facebook Live part, when you're actually live on video, yeah, you may only get a handful of people. I think where the super value for Facebook Live comes in is the after the video is posted, because it continues to populate out to your network. I mean, with the gaming podcast that I do, I mean, we've seen it to where we'll have 15, 20 people engaging during the podcast, and then a few hours after the podcast had over 300 views on Facebook Live. For a small podcast, it's pretty good numbers. It's also where like Brian was asking about going in and kind of trolling the comments. We've actually used that, not in a recruiting sense, but I've used it on the podcast to go to other gamers or game conferences, people they're doing live and interacting with the audience, talking to them about the podcast that we do, and it works from a marketing standpoint. We've actually gotten a good bit of engagement off of that.
So let me ask though, is somebody who's trying to create visibility, obviously, say go up to 300 views, what would be the advantage of posting that on Facebook Live as opposed to YouTube, which is searchable and generally tends to be a pretty good traffic driver?
So you don't pick one or the other. You do both, right? So we use a program called XSplit. We do Twitch, we do Facebook Live, and then we export to YouTube. So it's just like, the same reason you don't use LinkedIn 100% to do recruiting. It's another tool. There is a lot of advertisement, a lot of promotion on it. I think that it's gotten better over the last probably 6 months or so since they've really started focusing on it. It's gotten better to where they're getting faster about notifying your network. If you have a Facebook page and you have a couple of thousand people that like your Facebook page, your company page, and that notification gets sent out to all 2,000 people that like your page. If you're doing it from your personal, you got 7, 8, 12, 1,400, ever how many people on your personal page, same thing. It promotes out to them. On top of that, it also promotes out to people with a similar interest to what your tags are.
Okay, so you see it as augmenting, really. And obviously Twitch is the coolest thing in the entire world, so that's another.
Exactly.
Let's together. Okay, cool. So then it's interesting. I want to go back just really quick if I can, Jess. So you're obviously very excited about Facebook, but they have a huge games division, so they're a direct competitor. So, in as much as, does that concern you at all? Like, they make a huge amount of their revenue from a game site.
Yeah, I mean that's so does Amazon, right? It's different kind of games.
That's true. They're massive multiplayer online, although basically they all work at an Xbox. So, LinkedIn, I guess, wins again. With that in mind, and I'm sensitive to time, I want to wrap it up. You could just go around and start with Jackie. We'll do Jess and Todd. If you don't mind, just if there's one thing like that I'm a recruiter, I can start doing right now to start doing my Facebook for recruiting better. What is that one thing that I can start doing today?
Me, this is Jackie. I would tell people to not be afraid to reach out to people that you're not connected to. I know that a lot of people, and I've heard the hesitation of not sending a message there, and I think it's important to go ahead if you find somebody that's compelling that you really need to talk to go ahead and just reach out. They can still see it, and hopefully they'll get back in touch with you. So that's what I would say.
Cool. Jess?
Yeah, I'd say get the tools that are out there that are free. Shane's tool, Get Hired tool. Pay for it if you've got the budget. $59 a month, $89 a month, somewhere around there. So if you've got the budget, pay for the tool. But if not, start with the free ones and just start using Facebook. Don't be afraid to use it for business. I think that's to reiterate what Jackie was saying. Don't be afraid to reach out to Messenger, somebody that you're not connected to. It's jump on there and try it. It's not. I haven't had anyone so far, knock on wood, that has come back, oh my God, you're reaching out to me on Facebook. I can't believe you're doing this. This is my personal network. I haven't had that happen. I've reached out to a lot of people on Facebook. So I just don't be afraid to try it. And use your mobile. Install Messenger on your phone and use it because it's pretty much instant in their hand response.
How about you, Todd?
I think the biggest thing, and it kind of got me thinking about it because I'm speaking at SourceCon in the fall on the fundamentals, is that when you're approaching Facebook, especially for people starting out on it, to make sure they have an organized and approach to Facebook, like how are you going to do it, like a methodology. Make sure that you understand, what you want to accomplish in terms of sourcing. Really understand what you want to accomplish in terms of advertising, etc., and make sure that you have a good, solid foundation for just jumping in, using the tools, trying to do this. Make sure you're organized and have an approach and know what you want to accomplish from what you're doing on Facebook for sure.
Okay, and I guess that timing-wise leaves it to me. My advice is quite simple. 85% of job searches start on Google. Google and Facebook are direct competitors with a completely different ethos, and building for a Facebook ecosystem is actually kind of contrary, other than retargeting, to every piece of job seeker behavior online that any study has looked at. So I'd say buy AdWords and stay away from Facebook. But at the same time, Oculus is probably going to change pre-hire assessment and on-the-job training. So that'll be something to look forward to. But with that, anyone out there has any Facebook sourcing questions, you will be receiving email, and I would encourage you to reach out to the people on this panel who know way more about it than me. So with that, thank you very much, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties, and I look forward to seeing you on a social network soon.